Welcome everyone to a review. I'm going to be reviewing with the Dear Sweet D period. D period, please say hi. Hi. They love you guys. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through this, and it's simply questions and answers and all that sort of stuff, just like one might expect. So for example of this, you know this one, hopefully.
1054.
Okay, what you're going to do, this is just a quick sample. Ignore the numbers up top. I realized I didn't use them. Okay, because I never numbered anything.
Leo.
So, what I'm going to do... Okay, be nice. Okay, what I'm going to do is slowly start removing wrong answers as I do this until you get to the right answer. And I always recommend to students that they pay attention to why the wrong answer is wrong. Okay, be good. Let's do this. Here we go. First up, Crusaders crusaded to gain this form of remission from punishment from the Pope. Crusaders went on crusade to gain what? This form of remission of punishment from the Pope. Was it interdict, indulgence, land, or reconciliation? Okay. So the first one, don't give away answers. Okay, so let's get rid of some obvious ones. Land itself does not get rid of punishment. Reconciliation, that has to do sort of with that, but the sacrament of reconciliation does not get rid of all punishment due to sin. So we're left with these two I words right here. Let me clarify this. Interdict is a punishment itself. It's a penalty. Interdict was, remember, when you excommunicate like a whole country. The correct answer is indulgence. Indulgence is what, so to speak, gets rid of purgatory time, gets rid of punishment due to sin, and some of the Crusaders went on crusade precisely to gain this sort of an indulgence. Okay, question 2. What is the general practice of Christianity by the large population at this time called? Is it called Christendom, the Holy Roman Empire, Outremer, or the Papal States? The general practice of Christianity by the large population. I'm actually going to choose. The correct answer, FYI, is the one that is the largest in terms of size here. So it is not the Papal States. Papal States, that midsection of Italy that the Pope owned. We're talking about something even bigger. Nor is it Outremer. Outremer, remember, was the name of the Crusader states in the Holy Land. Outremer literally is French for beyond the sea, the kingdom beyond the sea. Nor is it the Holy Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire, which is essentially pretty much Germany at this point. It's not the Holy Roman Empire either. It sounds pretty big and impressive. Christendom, though, is what we call the whole idea that pretty much all of Europe at this time was sort of practicing Christianity, even though, you know, political differences, that they were united in their faith. Question 3. What was the year of the Great Schism? What was the year of the Great Schism? Was it 910, 1054, 1095, or 1099? Which of these was the year of the Great Schism? 910 is a little too early. 1095 was when the First Crusade was started, and coincidentally 1099 was the year the First Crusade ended. Therefore it was 1054. 1054 when Cardinal Humbert and Michael Cerularius were very much hated each other, mic dropped, all that stuff. Okay, question number 4. We talked about a law or a policy the church put forward called the peace of God. What did the peace of God deal with? Or I'm sorry, in this case, what did it prevent? Prevent attacking the Pope, killing priests, targeting civilians, or fighting on holy days. Which of these was the peace of God intended to prevent or limit? Killing priests, most of the time priests are not in war anyway, so it's not that. Attacking the Pope did get you an automatic excommunication, but that's not what this law is about. Fighting on holy days is what the truce of God talked about.
Nice one.
But targeting of civilians, don't target non-combatants, is something very much that was a concern, so much so that the church had to step in and say, we need a new policy. Don't do it anymore. Okay? That's what the peace of God was about. Question number 5. Hildebrand, who's a pope, question was, which pope was he?
Gregory the Seventh.
Well, let's find out.
Oh, wait, no, that's...
Okay, let's find out. Hildebrand was not Gregory the Fifth.
Oh, it's...
Which Hildebrand was a pope, but which pope was he? He was not Gregory the Sixth. Hildebrand once got in an argument with the Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV.
Oh, shoot.
But he himself was Pope Gregory VII, Pope St. Gregory VII. Henry IV, remember, was the emperor he had the argument with. The emperor was forced to wait outside on his knees in the snow for 3 days. That's who Henry IV was. Okay. Question 6. We have a movement afoot at this time which deals with the merging of faith and reason, which tries to promote how much can we know both in terms of theology and philosophy combined. Is that called science, scholasticism, Christendom, or mendicancy? Look, this one's a pretty fast and obvious one. We know it's not Christendom. Christendom refers to the fact that a large geographical area was practicing Christianity. It's not science. Science is simply how far can we know just with reason alone. Mendicancy dealt with poor religious orders, orders that existed by begging. The correct answer is scholasticism. That's a pretty easy one. Question 7. What was the target, the focal point, if you will, of the Crusades, especially given this list? What was the goal of the Crusades? All of these are very famous cities. Was it Paris, Constantinople, Jerusalem, or Rome? Which of these was the goal, or the target, or the aim, if you will, of the Crusades?
This one should be easy, guys.
Should be easy, but you might be surprised. Okay? It is not Paris. We haven't really talked too terribly much about Paris at this time, other than St. Genevieve's protection of it from Attila. Nor is it Rome, either. Even though the Fourth Crusade went through here, it was not Constantinople. The goal was the Holy Land. It was Jerusalem. It was where Christ was, particularly Jerusalem itself. Some simple questions here. Question 8. Which of these did not happen during the Inquisition? Which of these did not happen during the Inquisition? Now, the rest of that does mean 3 of these things did happen during the Inquisition, and that's pretty heinous and horrible. But which of these did not actually happen as part of the results of this? Torture confessions, executions, branding, or targeting Jews. Okay. We know that tortured confessions totally happened during the Inquisition. We know that branding happened from time to time during the Inquisition. Executions happened as a result of the Inquisition, that is fair to say. But remember, the Inquisition was not about other religions. We'll have a slightly different conversation during the Spanish Inquisition, slightly. But the Inquisition was largely to deal with heresy, not to deal with other religions. Other religions still existed at this time, especially Judaism and Islam in various corners of Europe. Which of these was the reason the Dark Ages, so-called, are called the Dark Ages? Was it because this is when we discovered iron? Was it because of the Vikings? Was it because of the Papal States? Or was it because of all of the universities showing up? Why are they called the Dark Ages? Well, this does not have anything to do with iron. There is the Iron Age of the Papacy. We'll get to that a little bit later. And that has to do with literal iron. Nor is it the Papal States themselves. They are called into existence at this time, but it's not that. Now, if you want to say because of a lack of education or literacy, that would have been a fair statement. But because there's a lot of universities, that's actually the opposite sort of way of phrasing the answer. One of the reasons they were called the Dark Ages, aside from things like the plague, illiteracy, and stuff like that, was the fact of this problematic nature of the Vikings and no clear way of dealing with them. We talked about the spread of Christianity to a lot of places. Which of these was the apostle to the Slavs? Was it Cyril and Methodius together? Was it Augustine of Canterbury? Was it Vladimir? Was it Wenceslaus? Which of these was the apostle to the Slavs? It's not Augustine of Canterbury, who is sort of the apostle to England. Nor was it Wenceslaus, who was in Bohemia. Close, but not there. And despite there being a V in the name, it is not Vladimir either, who's in Russia. It's Cyril and Methodius. Remember Cyril, who famously is the creator of the Cyrillic alphabet as well. These are the apostles, plural, to the Slavs. Who is the first artist of the Renaissance? Was it Raphael, Leonardo, Donatello, or Giotto? Which of these was the first artist of the Renaissance? Raphael, Leonardo, Donatello, or Giotto? Let's get rid of my least favorite. Definitely Da Vinci. Mona Lisa is totally overrated.
He didn't even finish it. She has no eyebrows.
She has no eyebrows. I'm going to get rid of Raphael next because he's not that cool in the video game. Donatello is way cooler in the video game. He's actually older than all the rest but of the Ninja Turtles, but it's not him. The answer is Giotto. Giotto, who, despite being very much in the medieval ages, is rightfully called the first artist of the Renaissance for the breakthroughs he achieved there. Question 12. I mentioned this just a moment ago. Let's see if you remember this. I know. Denying the sacraments to a region. What is that called? Is it inquisition, apostasy, excommunication, or interdict? Well, it's not apostasy. Apostasy is when you deny your own faith. It's not something that the church imposes on you. It's something that you yourself have done. The Inquisition really had nothing to do with sacraments. It's a court system dealing with heresy. The bottom two are very closely related. But the problem is excommunication is really meant for a person. It's a person-to-person, case-to-case basis. Interdict is meant for the whole country, whether for the sins or the problems of the whole country or of the higher-ups in that country. That's where interdict kicks in. Which Greek philosopher had a profound influence on the writings, the methodologies, the styles of St. Thomas Aquinas? Was it Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, or Pythagoras? Pythagoras was quite good, but he was more interested in math than in other things, so it is not Pythagoras. Okay. Socrates, very good and very profound in his own way, but it's not him. Well, he dies, okay. Now, St. Augustine was very interested in Plato, but St. Thomas Aquinas was very interested in Aristotle. Question 14. Iconoclasm involves the destruction of religious what? So dogma, land, music, or art. Iconoclasm involves the destruction of religious dogma, land, music, or art. It's not per se the destruction of land. It's not music either. It's not ha ha ha, I destroy the sheet music or the organ or something like that. it's not in terms of the religious value of dogmas, like you're denying the faith or something like that. It involves the destruction of religious art. It was viewed as very problematic as well. The East did it. Remember, Albigensianism had a touch of this as well. I just told you this. Let's see if you remember.
Leo, you should know this.
Okay. Which of these was the apostle to England? Was it Columba, Bede, Becket, or Augustine? All of these people are in Britain proper. But which of these is rightfully called the apostle to England? Columba, Bede, Becket, or Augustine? Let's get rid of the most northerly one. It's not Columba, who was apostle of Scotland. Scotland and England are different. Go to a World Cup match and you'll see. The rest of these guys are all saints in England. But Becket shows up a little too late. Remember, Becket was the one who was famously ordered to be killed by King Henry II. You know, will no one rid me of this troublesome priest? Bede and Augustine lived at the same time. Venerable Bede and everything, father of English history, but Augustine of Canterbury, emphasis of Canterbury part, is the apostle to England. Exactly. Ooh, I didn't go over this with you guys. Completely forgot about this. Yeah, I'll let you. This is going to be your blind guessing in the dark.
With that discovery, I don't know if you should have a title grade.
That's pretty great. Okay. St. Thomas Aquinas had a remarkable teacher, a man who is actually the patron saint of scientists because he had numerous scientific breakthroughs. This is one of them, that he happened to discover arsenic. But which one was it? Was it Alfred, Albert, Leo, or Gregory the Great? All of them are the Great, but which one is it? It's not Gregory, and it's not Leo. Both of those were popes, very famous. We've talked about, especially Leo. Alfred the Great, you would talk about as King of England, but not anything to do with this. The King of England who actually fought Vikings and all this stuff. But Albertus Magnus, Albert the Great, was the famous patron saint of scientists and teacher of Thomas Aquinas. Okay. Remember, Berengarius had a heresy. I know, you always remember that, and that actually might help you right here. But that heresy concerned what particular aspect of the church? Was it transubstantiation, papal infallibility, baptism's efficacy, or the seal of confession? Which of these did his heresy concern? Now, the seal of confession is something that is invented at this time. It's an option the church has. The church could get rid of it tomorrow if it felt like it. Nor is it over baptism's efficacy. People, out of all the sacraments, baptism is the one that most people actually can agree to. Nor is it over the issue of papal infallibility, which exists but has not been officially even declared yet. The issue is over the Eucharist, the nature of, does Jesus actually show up? Is it him? Is it entirely him? Etc. The issue of transubstantiation, which deals with the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Who called for the Albigensian Crusade? Who calls for it? Is it Pope Innocent III, Hildebrand, Pope Alexander III, or Gregory VII? Well, it's not Hildebrand. Nor is it also Hildebrand. The same thing, right there. That's half of this question tests you on. Innocent III or Alexander III? Okay, what did I just say?
It's not Hildebrand. It's not Hildebrand.
It's not Hildebrand or Hildebrand. Therefore, it's Alexander. There we go. Okay, good. Okay, next one. Exiting drawing. Okay. Question 19. Oops. Sorry, little technical difficulties. Which of these was not invented during the medieval era? Which of these was not invented during the medieval era? Watermills, clocks, paper, or matches? Which of these was not invented yet? Well, it's not watermills. Watermills are almost like this identifying trait of this time period. Clocks, believe it or not, also were invented during this time period. As was paper. Matches didn't come out until, I believe, around the 1800s is when matches were invented. But all those other things, paper, clocks, watermills, very famous inventions, very useful inventions, very much of the medieval era. Question 20. The balance of earthly power, temporal power, and papal power is known as what? Is it known as the Two Swords theory? Is it called the Holy Roman Empire? Is it lay investiture? Or is it the separation of church and state? Which of these deals with the idea that the Pope has sort of both sets of authority? It's not lay investiture. Lay investiture is a problem the church had to deal with civil people overstepping their bounds into religious authority. Nor is it the Holy Roman Empire, which is essentially just Germany at this point. Yeah, the Pope calls it into existence, but it's simply Germany. Quite the opposite. It's not the separation of church and state. It's sort of the opposite of that, the sort of combining of that the Pope has both religious power and earthly power. This is called the Two Swords theory, that the Pope wields this authority. It allows other people to have it and do stuff like that with it. Around there. You'll be in lunch. What was the name of the church court system for heresy? Interdict, Inquisition, Crusades, or excommunication? We've hinted at this one enough. Let's just kind of cut to the chase with it. Okay. It is not excommunication. There might be a penalty you face for this, but it's not actually itself the court system. Nor is it interdict, which also is sort of a blanket thing for excommunicating a whole region. And even though there is one crusade that is meant to deal with a heresy, it itself is not a court system. It's simply war. The Inquisition is the court system, the trial system that is used during this time. Let's see if you remember this one. There was one word in particular that was famously a problematic sticking point between the two sides at the heart of the Great Schism. What was the problem that the two sides fought over, disputed over, that really just sort of was the final straw for the Great Schism? Was it infallibility, two swords, consubstantial, or filioque? It was not consubstantial. We're not talking about people who are guilty of Arianism at this point. Nor is it the two swords thing. It's not about political and earthly authority. And even though there's a problem with the Pope, it's not even exactly an issue of infallibility there either. There is an issue they disagree with the Pope. It's not so much the Pope's authority in this matter. It's actually over this idea of the Trinity, that the Holy Spirit comes from the Father and filioque, and from the Son. Question 23. What monastery, or in this case, whose monastery, was responsible for the reform of all of the other monasteries at this time? Was it Anthony of Egypt's, Brno's, Basil's, or Benedict's? A lot of A and B letters here. Anthony, Brno, Basil, or Benedict? Now, let's get rid of some obvious contenders here. Anthony of Egypt started all the religious orders. He himself did not reform them during this time period. He lived way back when. A little more closer to the medieval era was Benedict, but Benedict started his order. He was not reforming religious orders. Basil the Great called for vows, all sorts of great innovations, but he's not reforming the orders. Remember, it was Berno and his order at Cluny. Who founded the Order of Friars Minor. Founded the Order of Friars Minor. Was it Francis, Bernard, Dominic, or Berno? Which of these men founded the Order of Friars Minor? Well, it's not Berno. We'll just get rid of him right now. Berno founds the order of the monastery of Cluny. It's not called that. Nor is it Bernard. St. Bernard finds the monastery at Clairvaux. And all this stuff. Great stuff there, but not that. Dominic's order is called the Order of Preachers, because Dominic said there was a problem with preaching, so it's called the Order of Preachers. Francis's order is called the Order, the technical name is the Order of Friars Minor, just affectionately known after their founder as the Franciscans. During this time period that we've studied, which side, person, or faction frequently falls into heresy? Is it the Pope, France, the Holy Roman Emperor, or the Byzantine Empire? Okay, well, the Pope himself, let's get rid of the obvious one, cannot be guilty of heresy, so it's not him. France as well, there's some problems in France. Remember, they're killing all the Knights Templar and stuff like that, but they're not actually guilty of heresy per se. The Holy Roman Emperor, a bit of an off and on again relationship with the Pope in terms of how well along they get with each other, but it's not him. It's actually the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire goes through numerous heresies, numerous schisms at this time period, replacing one with the other. Lots of stuff there. Because of all of the murders and assassinations, the years 886 to 1046 is also known as the what age of the papacy? The Red Age, the Martyred Age, the Dark Age, or the Iron Age? Because of all the problems going on, what is this called? Now, to clarify this is not called the Martyred Age. We're not talking about martyrdom here at all. We're not talking about, and they definitely went to heaven. No, we're talking about they were assassinated because someone wanted their job. That's not quite a martyrdom there. Red is a cool name for them and fitting, but it's not red. And while this time period is also known as the Dark Ages in general, it's not called the Dark Age of the Papacy, it's called the Iron Age of the Papacy. And that iron is reference to all of the knives. The iron that the daggers were made out of is what it refers to for all the backstabbings going on. The Iron City, right. Who was the angelic doctor who famously wrote the Summa Theologica? Was it Hildebrand, Thomas Aquinas, Bonaventure, or Dominic? Who was the angelic doctor who did this? It's not Hildebrand. Gregory VII dictates to the Pope and all that, but not him. Bonaventure, sometimes called the Seraphic Doctor, not him. Now, Dominic started the order that Thomas Aquinas joined, but it was not him either. It's Thomas Aquinas, the doctor of the church, the angelic doctor, whose key work is the Summa Theologica. 3? Who wrote the Divine Comedy? Dante, Bede, Chaucer, or Shakespeare? Okay. Okay. And the guy from the pizza. So it's not Shakespeare's pizza, nor Chaucer's pizza, who wrote the Canterbury Tales, nor is it Bede, but it is Dante, who called for the First Crusade. Calls for the First Crusade. We have all manner of places represented: Henry II of England, Louis IX of France, Henry IV, Holy Roman Emperor, and Pope Urban II. Henry II of England is the guy who brings about the death of Becket. And the Crusades had already been going at that point. Henry IV was the Holy Roman Emperor who was kicked out of office by Hildebrand. It's not him. Louis IX goes on crusades, but he goes on some of the last crusades that are out there. Crusades are called for by the Pope. Blessed Pope Urban II calls for the crusades. Speaking of going to the Great Schism again briefly, who is the Archbishop of Constantinople, who pretty much threw his whole area into the Great Schism? Was it Wenceslaus, Otto, Michael Cerularius, or Photius? It's not Wenceslaus, who was a very saintly man, Duke of Bohemia and all that stuff. It's not Otto, the man who reunified the Holy Roman Empire, made it decidedly more German. Photius was a problem in the East at this time. He causes a schism, but it's fixed. It's not the Photian schism. It's Archbishop or Patriarch Michael Cerularius. I'm Michael Sarah. Okay, so I'm showing this briefly. You can pause the video here to see this. These are the right answers. And then I'll show you the other set of answers as well. Okay, and there you go. I hope you use this information well for your test. Have a nice day.